Hello and good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are on your screens. We welcome Laurie McCabe, and we have a fantastic session up front us as we have the opportunity to go into the buzzword bingo on one end. Everybody's talking about AI, but we love to focus on where our heart is beating, such
With
as
AI?
that one. No,
Artificial hearts.
the small and medium businesses, and are they ready to unleash the power of artificial intelligence, or are they still going for the real good old stuff on to be a bit more friendly towards the AI topic? Where is the beef, and where can SMBs go for to get a benefit out of it towards their own businesses and towards the customers? Thank you very much, Laurie, that you are helping us and giving us a hint. And I will control my LinkedIn sooner or later, hopefully. So you are preparing some kind of a very important research in a way that you have some outlines ready, it's ongoing, people are questioned, and we are professionally curious about it. Could you tell us a bit more about yourself for the audience, and then a bit sneak in what you're doing just on that topic?
Yeah, sure. Well, hi all. Nice to see you again. And yeah, Laurie McCabe, and I'm one of the co-founders of SMB Group. And we started up in 2010. So we've been doing what we do, which I'll tell you in just a minute, for quite a bit now. But basically, we're an analyst and research company that focuses on small and medium business and mid-market companies. Unlike some of the big vendors, analyst vendors, they focus more on the enterprise. We focus on SMB. But other than that, we do all the typical things you would expect an analyst firm to do. And so surveys are a big part of what we do at SMB Group, both syndicated and custom surveys, because as probably most people know, small, medium business, mid-market, very diverse. There's not homogeneity. It's very fragmented, and you really have to do the research in order to understand what's going on. I like to say opinions are great, but opinions backed up by facts are better.
Well, what do you want to say in contrast to the big ones you actually work?
Well, no, I think hopefully they do too. But, we do a lot of surveys. We do the syndicated surveys and the custom surveys and, every year. So we feel like in general, we usually have a pretty good grip on this crazy market of small and medium businesses. And the research we're doing right now focuses on, drum roll please, guess what it is? AI and, generative AI and all that kind of thing. So we're asking a lot of questions of them, how they think about it, what they feel are the benefits, the drawbacks, what they're doing kind of prepare for it, if anything. And we're in the middle of fielding this study, so I don't have our complete results to share with you or anything like that. But I did take a peek and get a few ideas of where things are leaning right now.
Appreciate it.
What was your working hypothesis?
Well, we actually went into this one kind of saying, we don't know. We don't know. Like I said, unlike maybe large enterprise where you can talk to a half dozen really big Fortune 500 companies and maybe walk away saying you kind of have a perspective. There's so many different kinds of small and medium businesses, and so we don't know. We didn't know where they are in terms of how they're thinking about it and planning for it. And the other thing, wrinkle in all this is that the whole topic is evolving so fast itself, right?
Yeah,
so I'm not a mathematician, but I'm sure if you had some equation for SMB AI, it's just a very very volatile thing, I think, right now.
Yeah. How do you gather data on something where the landscape is shifting so quickly?
Right. Well, obviously, we're going to have a 2 or 3 week period where we're gathering the data. And as we do with a lot of our studies, a lot of them sometimes with the whole COVID thing and everything, we always really kind of say, this is when this survey was fielded, because it's a snapshot in time, right?
Yeah.
And, I don't know, tomorrow as one I noticed in one of the comments in the survey, we asked drawbacks, and somebody said, robots are going to take over the world. So who knows, if we were to do this survey in 6 months, maybe the robots have taken over. So the time frame you do any of this in is always important.
But it is a logical aspect of skeptical entrepreneurs, which are with a certain amount of skepticism, which is a lot more in detail with those people which have their hard-earned money by sweat and blood in their hands after a long workday, and they do want to know if they are still there tomorrow, or if the bots are coming, if they still have customers, or they are gone on e-commerce sites, and if they still can serve human beings or machines. Yeah. So we saw all something our friends from the Blue Cloud did present today to analysts. We watched probably their sales for their video show, and what they had for takeaways. My first takeaway is, I'm a solopreneur, I'm an SMB fan, I'm a CRM and CX enthusiast, but I will not afford $360,000 for a full bloom, a sweet approach of a San Francisco-based solution. What is your taking from what can an SMB afford ongoing AI?
Yeah, well, I think for SMBs, you really have to start the conversation from a different angle. And affordability is obviously one of the angles. But, we were maybe a little surprisingly, we have seen so far in our results that SMBs are much more receptive to this than maybe you might think. A majority think it's going to have a very big impact on their businesses in the next couple of years. And, just over 50% think it has more benefits for business than drawbacks. So I wouldn't definitely not characterize them as Luddites. It was also over 50% are just playing with this on their own, as I'm sure all of you are, right?
Yeah. Do they have a clear? Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So no. So it's like definitely there's interest, and there's, I would say, enthusiasm tempered with, the skepticism, Ralph, that you mentioned. Now, when it comes to affordability, I personally believe that the way most small and medium businesses are going to consume this is in applications they already use, where it's provided as part of the application. So, you just mentioned a model where, there's going to be an AI cloud and that's going to all be extra charges, but that's really not the case in a lot of situations. Like if you look at companies like Intuit and HubSpot and Zoho and, a whole bunch that I've talked to, they're going to be adding they've already all added machine learning and other kinds of AI capabilities. So let's just, we're all using AI, Google, we're probably, you're completing your emails or drafting your emails with it. But I think for SMBs, it's going to be curated within the application we already know and love. And I think a benefit of that is that a lot of the guardrails, from the reputable vendors, like the ones I mentioned, will be there. And the other benefit is these vendors that really cater to small and medium business, they know they're not building their own large language models. They're not hiring a, team of AI experts or any of that stuff. So they have to make it intuitive and make it augment what the applications are already doing for them.
You said they are not Luddites, which is good to hear. Ralph is afraid that they can't afford it. So what, in your experience, or as an outcome or a preliminary outcome of what you're seeing, is how high is the interest layer or interest?
I think it's very high. What we're seeing so far in the survey, very high, very strong interest. I think one of the questions we have in there is something, are you, I can't remember, describe your level of interest. And one is like, I'm extremely interested and I try to keep up. And one says, I'm moderately interested and try to keep up. One is like, I'm not really interested, but I try to keep up because it's important, etc. And most people are saying, I'm either extremely interested or moderately interested in it. I think at the end of the day, unlike a lot of other technologies, number one, the generative AI kind of democratizes AI. Anybody, maybe even my Labrador retriever, could go on OpenAPI if she could talk and ask it a question. Why doesn't my mom feed me more real chicken or whatever? And anybody can go put a question in there. So just to play with it, you can immediately, it's like a whack on the side of your head. Hey, oh my gosh, this could change everything. Number two, with this generative AI, it's all over the media. You really have to live under a rock not to be hearing about it. It's not esoteric in that sense.
Yeah.
And so I think that because it's something everybody can use, and even, like Google's, you can now draft your emails with Gmail with AI, in the most, common types of applications, people their imaginations are going and saying, oh, I could do this, I could do that. And it's really rare when something comes along that is that powerful. So people know it's going to change business. We don't really know all how and when, but everybody gets that it's going to change things.
Yeah, I was
So
wondering. I was wondering how well the interest of the people you're surveying lines up with what's actually being developed by the vendors. I mean, is their desire in line with what they're likely to see?
Well, I mean, I guess, first of all, I think, you're really only limited in your imagination by what you want to see to a certain extent. But I think
sky's the limit.
Yeah, we asked people, and I took a couple of notes here. I'm just trying to find them. What are the biggest benefits that you could, get from this technology, do you think, right? Because, I mean, we're all just starting to realize what's going on. And, the biggest benefits out of a list of 10 so far are revolving around helping me make better decisions, automating repetitive tasks, and helping employees free them up so they can do, they don't have to write, let's say, a press release from scratch every time. I mean, I'm picking on that because they're so formulaic, right?
Yeah.
So there are so many ways you can envision it helping you with that. And the other interesting thing that I'm seeing, we asked them about a bunch of functional areas in the company and where they think, they would want to use it, and it's pretty high in most areas. I mean, things like sales and marketing and cybersecurity and IT management are kind of at the top. But it's not like anybody's looking at any area and saying, no, we don't think we would ever have a use for it there. People's imaginations are definitely sparked by all this.
I was wondering, especially as you mentioned that the guardrails, or as you call it, the frames which one has around himself, that it is a smart approach, such as from those vendors you mentioned, and I had Sugar CRM in mind, where the acquisition of Node. I have Zoho especially in mind with Sicher, but also with their very strong focus on privacy. I see a very detailed and respectfully knowledgeable skepticism in how serious larger enterprises take the privacy, security, and data compliance approach. How important is that for the SMBs?
What we're seeing so far in the survey, that's really important. That, the criteria that they're going to care about, knowing about, how is my data protected? Can I understand what's going on? How you're using the data. All those kinds of concerns that you're mentioning, Rolf, are very important. And I would say these companies, the vendors, right, the software vendors, or in some cases even hardware vendors, if they don't take that seriously, they're in a lot of trouble. You heard today Salesforce saying about how, your data, if you use it in Salesforce and it goes into, OpenAI, nothing's remembered by it, nothing's retained by it, nothing's reused by it.
I do not believe.
Okay, you don't believe, but I don't know enough to believe or not. But
sorry, I'm not only full of skepticism, they still do not have a solid GDPR approval in Germany. We have no privacy act or whatsoever between the United States and now they promote me and make me believe we have that full under control, not by a contract.
Yeah. And I don't know whether they do or not. I'm just saying that is what customers are going to want and or demand right now. Right now, I don't think people are smart enough to figure out, like you just said, is this true or is this just BS? We don't know, right? But I do think first of all, the companies that end up developing their own version of generative AI, they're going to have a lot more control, right? So if I am Intuit or I am Zoho, these companies have all said they're working on their own models. In those cases, those are going to be much more use case specific to the applications and the customers, and you can have a much higher level of trust, right? We're not there yet. I'm not saying we're there at all, but people still, I think, have to be really careful. Now, that's why you see even these big companies like Google and Apple saying, don't put anything in these.
Yeah, or Samsung.
I honestly believe that they will show proof, and they will show and help people to get the enthusiasm and the good gut feeling and some certificates where they show that they have all these things in place in a solid manner, but not yet, and not country specifically, where I would love to see it, because I'm just expressing what I hear from my potential customers and from my existing customers, that they are not strong believers, and either they care or they do not care. And the moment they do care, they have in their minds that they are facing lawsuits if they make a mistake by utilizing the wrong tools. And that is the only reason that, like in other cases, Esteban Kolsky, show me the facts, show me the figures, show me the data. I just love to see some more details on that one.
Oh, I agree. I think we need a whole lot more validation. But what I'm saying is that is what people want today. I think in the future, especially when you think about vendors that have tens of thousands or millions of small and medium business customers, if they have their own model, they don't need, if I think about something like accounting, I don't need to be going out to OpenAI to have that universe for most of the things I want to know about, right? As an accountant or a financial person. And, so companies like that, they're going to aggregate anonymously a lot of user data. You're going to have to opt into it. And, having your data used, you may not want your data used at all, but I do think over time, some of these things will come into play. And I think when you think about it, if a company, a very big company, breach that trust in any kind of noticeable way, it's a pretty bad thing, for that company. So if you are Salesforce or HubSpot or Sugar or whoever, Zoho, you really need to make sure that you're doing this on the up and up. Now, that said, I definitely believe, just like with every other aspect of cybersecurity, we're always chasing the bad guys. So there's so many ways, like everything else in tech, where vulnerabilities can be exploited and malicious acts can occur, that I truly believe that there's going to be a whole lot of unintended consequences even when people do the right thing.
Let's get back a little back to topic. After we now bashed a little on particular vendors, which is always a fun thing, or sometimes or not. So what are particular hurdles for the adoption of AI that you see in the SMBs? What is their readiness at all?
Yeah,
I think the biggest hurdle is they don't know what they don't know, right? This has all come at them like a freight train, and like I said, they can see that this is going to be game changing. They want to try to get their arms around it, but they're, just kind of, even those of us that follow it all the time, we probably know one tiny little, a tenth of a 10th% about this whole thing. And so I think just not knowing what they need to know and not knowing even what to ask the vendors at this point, assuming that, like I said, a lot of them are kicking the tires, maybe with something like OpenAI, but I believe a lot more are going to be, trying the Gmail drafts, or if, their CRM vendor, offers things up, they're going to try that. I don't really think they would know, like, the things we just heard about, and the other thing about thinking about toxicity, thinking about rules of who can do the what, thinking about even something basic like what is the best way to prompt. So I think
dealing with hallucinations.
Hallucination. They're going to be like, Timothy Leary, I thought he was dead. So,
the aspect is, I don't want to jump into as Tom mentioned, into the negative approach. I would like to see, such as you mentioned, some positive aspects in general of AI. Where have you expectations that the research could get into some findings for the top 3 utilization aspects you hope to get as a result of where SMBs make their approach and would have a benefit?
Yeah, well, I mentioned before that they think decision making and automating repetitive tasks, and that those at the high level, those are the top things. Now, what we're also doing is, and I haven't even looked at this data yet, but based on their job titles, we're asking them in certain functional areas, so like HR or CRM or financials or IT, whatever. which areas do you think you would use this in? Or which area, I forget exactly how we worded it. Are you interested in using it? So we should get for those different functional areas. And, obviously they might be very similar, like creating content in marketing and creating content in HR. You have a need to create content in everything, really. But, we don't really know that yet.
Yeah. I was curious on, as I asked for expectations, if there might be a trend in the prediction, such as a side of gut feeling to get on some areas, some advice, where would be the next best action for the sales and marketing people. And for instance, in forecasting, some larger...
forecasting, from what I'm seeing on the preliminaries, is very high on the list for like sales and accounting and things like that. Obviously not so much in like collaboration or IT or whatever. So to a certain extent, it depends on the function. But yeah, making better decisions in general is just, that I can somehow access more data, get more actionable data, get more insights, and make a better decision, right? Yeah. And get a better outcome from that decision. I think that's the holy grail that everybody would like to get out of it in the strategic sense. And then in the day-to-day sense, the big umbrella is just help get me some speed and scale with the stuff I have to do all the time, right?
What do you see as the readiness of SMBs to apply this type of tools? And what are stages of readiness? What are criteria of readiness?
Yeah.
Big
I think that I don't think any of us are ready. I wonder if large enterprises are ready. Mm-hmm. I think this is going to be like learn how to swim when you're thrown in the water. Mm-hmm. And I think the scary thing about this, in a way, is that anybody can go play around with this. And as we see, everybody's an overnight expert in AI. Mm-hmm. So many people are going to think they're ready when they're not. So my sense is people are going to have a inflated view of their readiness to use it both effectively and responsibly.
What are then KPIs that companies that apply any type of AI should keep keenly in mind, apart from the decreasing stack of money in the wallet?
Well, for small and medium businesses, we're a long way off till we're talking about them having KPIs. It's probably a better question for a large enterprise. But I think in general, you want to be thinking about where in my business can I get, looking at those two big buckets, right? Mm-hmm. Automating a lot of repetitive tasks, doing them faster and at greater scale, and then getting better insights. Looking at where in your business you can really use that. And then luckily what we are seeing is that the first place that most of these SMBs are going to turn to for more information is the vendors they already work with and trust. Mm-hmm. So if I'm using Salesforce or HubSpot or Zoho or whatever, and for CRM, and I say, oh my gosh, I don't have a good handle on sales forecasts, and it's taking us too long to create a marketing campaign. I don't know, whatever your problems are. Yeah. Hopefully you're going to go to those guys and you're going to say, show me how this can help me do this faster and better, right? And I think, it sounds very kind of, I don't know, not very erudite, but I do think that's how a lot of it's going to get started. And along the way, like I said, we are definitely seeing that they do want these different I wouldn't say guarantees, but they do want these protections on their data, and they're going to want vendors to be surfacing that for them, telling them explicitly how the data is going to be used. But it's going to be a work in progress.
But still, I totally buy in additional automation. Check on that, because I can see where I do not do manual work anymore. So there's a clear benefit and directly visible. Insight in itself is nothing, actually, unless you act on it.
I agree. Just playing around with it, you put in some, and you're like, what is this pablum this thing is sending back to me? Matter of fact, I asked it the same question about 2 different vendors, and I would say that the answers it gave to me were almost the same thing. And these vendors are very different. So I agree. I think I would say the way people should use it now is, I don't know if you can trust it for that, really. When they start building these specific models, right? All around the data germane to that, horizontal area of expertise like CRM or an industry, then it becomes much smarter and much better at that. But now I think, asking it to, I took my notes from a conference that I was at, and I put my notes in there, and I said, write a blog on these notes summarizing the key highlights. And it did. Was it perfect? No, but it was definitely a good starting point, right? It saved me a lot of time from, when you go to a conference and, somebody says something here and there and wherever, it's all over the place in your notes, but then it can bring them into topic, whatever in this thing, and kind of consolidate it. So I would say, it saved me a good hour and a half from, writing this blog. It was very helpful. Or another thing is, when we do a survey, the last couple of surveys, I've said, here are the questions I want to ask about XYZ. Are there any other good ones you can think of? And in both cases, it's come up with a couple that neither we at SMB Group or the clients we have, because we always ask them for input. In both cases, it came up with, questions that we hadn't thought of that I thought were pretty good questions.
Works well for CRM convos as well, by the way.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, well, like your headlines, right? That kind of thing. I mean, or even just like if you're a marketer, I mean, what are 10 catchy subject lines for an email about whatever? I would call these, low stakes but high time requirements that you might spend to get to these things. And I think of it almost using it like a brainstorming thing, right?
First draft generator. As you did.
And then on the flip side, like I use Grammarly. I don't even use the paid edition, but they do a great job. I mean, the grammar checking and suggestions and everything else, where it's actually correcting me. Fabulous, right?
It's amazing how bad we are at language, right?
No, I mean, exactly. And even if you are the world's best grammarian, who can proof their own stuff?
It's true. I mean, it can be done, but it's always better to have another set of eyes.
Yes.
Looking back at SMBs like us or others, so you are saying that they don't know what they know, and that they tendentially, we are all SMBs, right? That we are overestimating our readiness, which means that there should be a set of criteria to help getting emotions and bias out of this estimation and overestimating ourselves versus underestimating ourselves? What are criteria that SMBs and other companies should look at to objectively assess our state?
To just assess if they're ready?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to proceed that logically, Thomas, but I think that, the first thing is just to think about, do you really, and I don't mean at a scientific data science level, but do you understand what this is? Do you feel like you have a good grasp on what it does and what its limitations are and some of the basics about it? And when you think about AI, there's many different kinds of AI. And so, just understanding those differences is a big deal, right? Because, using like machine learning is a whole different ballgame than using generative AI, right? And so I think, that's a big deal. I think everybody really has to get educated on that. I think they have to get educated on how their data is used in these different models, and how the other data that's coming into them is being used. So in other words, I have put non-confidential stuff into, let's say, OpenAI. I would never put in an NDA presentation. I could probably get sued. Flip side to that, I would never take something that was generated, my own notes, if I put that in there and it generates something great. But if you said to OpenAI, write me an article about SMBs and AI, well, where is this all sourced from? And do you open yourself up if you don't even know it? But, you are copying somebody there now.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of issues there. So I think in companies, you really definitely have to be able to say to your employees, look, this is the way we use it. This is the kind of information you can put in. This is the kind of information you can take out. This is the realm in which you can use it. This is the realm in which you can share it. But all those things, I think, have to be thought about. And it is also job or function dependent too, right? You have an internal only kind of function. Maybe you have different roles than if you've got a customer facing kind of function, or a financial function, or any function that can be audited. So I do think that it's there's more things than you can even imagine to think about. And that's why I'm saying I think people are going to just learn as they go. And unfortunately, that's good in some ways, but in other ways they're going to get, probably in a little bit of hot water every now and then.
Apart from technical stuff, so digging into a favorite of Ralph's here, actually, how about organizational and especially emotional readiness?
Yeah.
People readiness.
Yeah.
Exactly how to phrase and place the right questions to get some useful.
Absolutely. And that is where I think the vendors are going to do a lot with that, right? The vendors are going to be, so whether it's, Google or any of the other ones we talked about, they're going to be doing a lot to help you understand how to write a good prompt to get information. So I kind of feel like people are pretty good at learning by example, and that's not, that hard to think about. And, you can always ask it to try again, right? So, and you can always improve the way you ask a question. So I think people will just kind of naturally learn that. I think it's more these other guardrails of, where is this information coming from? Is it true? Is it accurate? Where can I use it? How do I, source it? Do I need to source it? All these things. Like, again, if you're using it internally, maybe it's not that big a deal, right? So if the three of you say, oh, we want to have a show about XYZ, and Marshall goes off and he says, what are some really important things going on in this area, and brings it back to you guys, and you talk about it and you decide what you're going to talk about on your show, that's not something that's going to probably get you in trouble. But if you go put something into a document that, gets circulated outside your organization, and I don't know. I mean, we already had that case where that lawyer was suing OpenAI because he was cited in some lawsuit about something that he was never even involved in.
Yeah. And there was the other lawyer that cited a couple of cases that didn't even exist.
Yeah. And, I know we talked about this other time I was on, but I just feel like in the political sphere, we're really going to see abuse with all this.
Yeah, that's my biggest concern. Every time I talk about the use of generative AI, that's where I go. How easy it is to create readable, plausible text quickly, whether or not it's true. And how easily we're already overwhelmed with the amount of information we need to take in and process, and determine, is this fact or is this bullshit? Orders of magnitude greater when you're able to press a button and generate 10 different versions.
Right. And we're all, like you said, we're in information overload. So how does the average person... The one thing I do think, though, is that in my judgment, it churns out a lot of garbage, just like a lot of pablum. Yeah. And with so much information out there, I guess my hope is that people will not want to read that just kind of vacuous stuff.
That's your hope.
My hope.
The reality...
Yeah.
I do have there some doubts, Laurie, I'm afraid.
I guess my fear is more like the Marshall's fear, like an evildoer is going to manipulate it, right? To purposely create something that's fake.
Yeah.
Well, the whole idea behind any new business technology is to generate value with it. And generating value can be a selfish thing. So
manipulation is always a troublemaker, and it might open for some people which went to some certain extent already over the edge and were lawsuited by storming buildings of public interest. That is a potential which can be done in other countries as well. And I'm very concerned, looking just around the corner to Berlin, how you can make masses moving again towards a course they afterwards do not, by clear senses, tell you why they did it. Yeah, they just ran because everybody else ran.
Flash mob.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is much more scary in the political world than in the business world, probably. But I mean, and let's face it, if AI takes over the world, it's probably because malicious actors hijacked AI, right? Because it just does what we tell it to do.
Yeah. Closing with politics, so there was a joke in a German newspaper recently, having a bunch of EU politicians asking ChatGPT to write a sensible use policy with ChatGPT answering, "I'm not stupid. I'm not that stupid to do this."
Oh my God, really?
Yeah. So,
that's too funny.
well, this probably sums it up nicely. In SMBs, so we establish, well, we know that they don't have the big pockets to buy big tools. Now, they are also the ones who need to maintain an edge against bigger companies. In how far could they use AI technologies to do exactly that?
Where can they leapfrog?
I'm sorry?
Where can they potentially leapfrog?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the way they will leapfrog is by just doing things in a more agile way, the way small and medium businesses always leapfrog. So in other words, if you want to do something with AI in a big company, it's probably going to have committees and this and that and the other thing. In a smaller company, it's probably like a couple of people at most saying, yeah, let's try this. Let's try this, new thing that HubSpot or whoever has to, speed up the whole process from, targeting a company to doing the research. By the way, they're working on this to, putting together the information and getting it to the sales reps and creating a marketing campaign and sending it and tracking it and whatever, all with just one or two little prompts. Probably pretty quick to try that. And so I think that's, in general, it'll just be the speed and agility, because let's face it, all these tools are going to be available all over the place and all kinds of applications. Plus you can just, do it on your own probably if you've got the resources. But it'll just be the agility that smaller companies usually have.
So is that the killer use case, or does there still need to be some sort of watershed event where people realize, hey, we have to use this technology to get it beyond the play level that we're at now?
Watershed event. I don't know if there needs to be a watershed event. I think it's more like the light bulb has to go on. Right? I'm playing with it, and I haven't tried this. I mean, it would be, if I were in a big company, though, I would try a bigger company where we did a lot of press. I would say, here's our press release template. This is what we're announcing. Write the press release. I mean, it doesn't sound like a big deal, but I would just think that you would just have little things like that crop up in your head, and it would snowball, right? And some things would work well and some things won't work well, but you'll just keep iterating. I mean, it's really probably the ultimate in the whole, just what do they call it, the fast failing. Just keep trying stuff, because you're going to hit things you're going to say, wow, that's great, and other things are going to be like, didn't work so well.
Maybe this is one of those cases where we will develop new ideas on how to use things from the user side, as opposed to being given a technology implementation, a new product, and saying, here's what you can do with it. So I like the light bulb.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think anybody that's played around with it, the light bulb just keeps clicking, right? It just keeps, you just keep thinking, well, what if I try this? What if I try that? And then you think, well, I better not try this or that too. But, you can definitely envision a lot of things that could really help you with, even like, if you put in, I haven't tried this, but maybe you had all kinds of things that you wanted to have sorted, right? You had like a lot of unstructured information from notes, and just sort this for me by whatever. I mean, I don't even know how long that would take to do manually, but if that could help me do something like that really quick. However, at this point, if it was any kind of sensitive information, you wouldn't really want to put that in there. So, like I said, it's just going to be learn as we go. Except for the really brilliant, data scientists who I know are, obviously they're much more informed about all this. But for the mere mortals, we're going to kind of learn as we go.
I wonder if we, in the next conversation, when the research has been executed, we have the results, that we find some information on how they would like to measure their ROI. Because Thomas at least 3 times tried a bit to figure out some KPIs one could measure on. And that was, for me, the reason. If we have KPIs, we can measure something, and then we can calculate an ROI, such in a classical business case approach. But without KPIs, it's so hard, just by gut feeling and by plausibility, to create, okay, I saved some time in creating that content. Or I'm a magician, I just tell him, as I learned how to ask the right questions, that I get a nice landing page, such as shown in one of the examples of one of the vendors. But
I think again, it's gonna vary. Like, you just mentioned landing page as well. Are you getting, higher or better results when you do your A/B testing on both A and B? Because you just have better messaging in there. For something like writing an employee or drafting an employee handbook, if it usually took us, I don't know, 60 hours and now it takes us 7 hours, it's probably going to vary. And the other thing is that, most, especially at the lower end, most SMBs, they have KPIs in the business, right? For, days sales outstanding or time to close the books or whatever. Well, actually, that's something they could measure with, but they don't necessarily have a KPI for every little thing. Like, you know what I'm saying? So
I'm listening very carefully, as I was just in a state of shock. Just ChatGPT is doing my counting. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Well, wouldn't that be great? I mean, if like all the businesses, like closing the books is such a big deal, right? But I guess what I'm saying is that, when you talk to SMBs a lot, like we do, it's not like they say, oh, we saved 7.5 hours, right? It's like, yeah, I think we're saving 10 hours, 20 hours a week, something like that. Or, yeah, if it's something they can easily measure, like sales increases or whatever, fine. But a lot of things, they're just not measuring that closely. It is more of a gut feel.
If I ask my fruit selling mom and pop shop around the corner, she is quite happy if her cash register is not goofing and she doesn't have to have too much work at the end of the workday to get a proper sum up and not counting it by hand. Yeah. And she said, oh, I can go home 2 hours earlier than I have to count it by myself. Yeah. That is measurable. And that is more than gut feeling. But I'm looking for some stronger, tougher examples.
Something with numbers attached to it.
Yeah, and I think we're just, we're just going to have to wait and see. I think, like I said, depending on the use case, different.
We are patient, milady. We are patient.
Yeah, and you think about any functional area of the business, there's certain things people measure and certain things they don't, and it varies from company to company. And I would say they're going to start with the KPIs they already have in that functional area. If they apply some kind of AI to it, what's the difference? But like I said, it's not like one KPI fits all for this. But not that easy. Yeah.
That's basically the point. So you need to think about what the benefit for the chosen scenario shall be. What it costs me to do a job right now versus then minus the costs I have incurring for using the tool. So
if there are any.
Well, they usually
not going to cost you anything to have Google draft an email.
Right.
Well, minus
the
Google account, yeah.
So I mean, like I said, with a lot of these small business vendors, they know people aren't going to pay extra for it, so they're going to build in certain specific use cases. You're not going to be able to do everything because they can't afford that, but they're going to give you a certain tools where you can use it.
Actually, I haven't used Google for drafting emails yet, although I'm running a Google account here.
You have to go into the Google Labs.
Yeah. Well, I have a paid Google account, so this is on the domain. So I didn't try that yet. So far, I think I'm good enough and fast enough.
That's the thing. We need to get over our pride. I'm the same way. Like the idea of using something else to write for me just punches me in the heart. It's a good place to start when you don't have a better idea. And we need to get over. Well, I need to get over my my reticence and my sense of pride anyway. And I'm sure a lot of other people do as well.
Well, I mean, I think all the concerns we talked about, they're very valid. But at the end of the day, the people that learn to use AI effectively in their jobs are going to have a real advantage over the ones that say, no, I don't want to use it, Marshall. No, only kidding, because they're going to just get more done. But they're going to have to learn how to use, that fine line of AI kind of organized this for me, took my notes and organized it, but then you have to add on your thoughts and perspectives to it, right?
There's, for instance, a difference. If you go for the additional cost, free of charge Bing add-on where you can utilize for simple searching stuff, if you do some research on data quality in conjunction with, then you get properly cited sources. And then you can dig into the sources. Such kind of research, what you elsewise would have done also with Google, seems to be a good starting point, as we already mentioned. But to get into more depths, such as some students are doing it, I simply asked my son, who is becoming teacher, still in his studies, how this will influence education, especially here in Germany. Yeah.
Oh, easy. Will be forbidden.
I was afraid so. And
that reaction
makes it more attractive, such as in the prohibition time. Then everybody will try to hide that he's using it. Yeah.
I guess I was talking to somebody whose wife is a professor, I think, at NYU, and I guess there's actually, AI detection software.
Yeah.
That's like 80% accurate. So I don't know, but like I said, there's. It's a slippery slope.
Yeah, and it's the wrong reaction, actually. It's the wrong reaction, actually.
And I tried that checkup software as well, as I was curious what in academical stuff, which I checked for last year's, doing some stuff to create a university course, is not properly quoted or might have been taken from elsewhere, and it's quite interesting to do that. But I would prefer the positive approach, such as we allow you to go into a university bibliothèque, or if you go in a library, or you do this, or you might use Google for research, or you can start as a starting point, even quote Wikipedia, but do something on your own in addition, and show that you are able to transform that stuff. Yeah?
Exactly. That's the right word, I think, transform it.
T is in GPT is for transform, isn't it?
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
even know what it stands for.
Yes, the T-
I usually forget what they all stand for too, but I'm pretty sure that
Generative programming.
Transformer, yeah.
tap dancer.
The T is transformer.
However,
However,
about the Marvel figures. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
got it
However,
right.
it's 8 o'clock. Yes.
as we are on top of the hour, and knowing that you are quite a busy lady, let's come to our famous last words.
Ta-da!
Famous last words of the show, not that term, not to become fully terminal here.
Yeah, last words for now.
Last words for now. That's a good one. So, looking into the glass bowl and opening up the box of fairy wishes, what would be the one wish? I got two parts of it. The one wish of yours that SMBs would do, and second part is same for the vendors when it comes to AI adoption.
Yeah. I mean, for SMBs, I think it's just to learn as much as you can about it, to really query the vendors that you work with already on how they're using it or plan to use it. And, just start, it's a whole brave new world, start learning about it, right? For the vendors, I think it's, as they relate to small and medium businesses anyway, recognize that these are not large enterprises. They're not going to have their own large language models. They're not going to be able to pay astronomical amounts of money to get these capabilities. And they also don't have anywhere near, I would think, the expertise that a large company would have in-house to figure out how to, as I said before, use it effectively and responsibly in the business. So create the environment where those companies can have people learn and apply and look at what you have and then apply to their business in a relatively straightforward way, and an affordable way. So that's for the vendors.
Affordable. I love that one.
And then the other thing for the vendors, I guess the big challenge is figure out how you can do this without, having one more thing that destroys the environment.
Yeah. Plenty of those.
Lots of compute power means lots of electricity burned.
Yeah, that is exactly one thing I was asking and requesting from some vendors. But
I would love to see you guys do a show on that with some expert on that.
Good idea.
That's a good idea.
Good one. Yeah, let's find one. Till then, thanks a lot.
Well, thank you. It was fun to talk to you as always.
It is always fun to talk to you as well.
And informative.
Thanks
Can't leave that part out.
Thanks also to the audience. Next week, we are doing something totally different, also to inform you. We are talking with someone of a company, unnamed for now, so we need to keep the tension, like suspense, that runs a school. So the person runs a school as part of a company that has doing good as part of as their philosophy. Now you probably know who we are talking about. The audience shall be kept in suspense. So going backstage now. Have fun, everybody, and see you next week.